Was on hold at the doctor's office, and they started playing The Exorcist. It's still ringing in my head, and once again, it's like as if acid reflux has encompassed my entire being, and I'm spitting up pea soup. I would imagine Jim Harbaugh is this whole Jim Harbaugh suspension, and how bizarre the entire story is. It does seem odd. Now, the NCAA, I would imagine, is less influential than the World Boxing Council.
Yeah, this is the big
in terms of credibility and its ability to go ahead and administrate what was going on in college football. This is an interesting story on so many different levels. As you look at Jim Harbaugh being suspended supposedly for the final 3 games. Now, the fascinating part to me, Lubie, is that you have Jim Harbaugh, a Michigan coach, beloved in the state of Michigan. At different times that they've had their differences with him. Well, when they're losing.
Yeah, 3 years ago.
He wasn't so fucking popular. But now he's a god. Everybody's wearing khaki pants. Incredible.
Doctors are so bad.
But the issue is Michigan decoding their signals. This is Carlos Beltran banging on a garbage can and telling Jose Altuve, yeah, go ahead and steal. He's coming home. They knew everything.
The time. Wake up with Defo, joined by Lubie. Welcome to the Defo Show.
Very pleasant. Good morning, everybody. Great to be with you. Peeling yourself off the mat Monday. I'm Jeff DeForest, along with Mike Lubie Lubitz, and happy to have you with us here on South Florida Live. And portions of the program, of course, air, especially when we have a great guest like John Congemi on a Pigskin Playbook Monday. Air on 5 Reasons Sports Network as well. Of course, later on, after a very successful, I don't know. I mean, do we give it the old fingers crossed that we can make it through a second straight day without any technical glitches?
Yeah,
on the Tony Bruno Sports Network. I think that's going well. Yeah. So that should be coming your way at 10 o'clock today, and should be a lot of fun. There's so many different things that happen over the weekend. Impossible to get to them all in the hour that we're going to be with you right now. And, of course, we still have our no-filter thing, which I think will dive into the play of the weekend, which what would you say that was? I mean, it could be a lot of things out of a zillion different games. Could be the Fail Mary, where we had the Dolphins return an attempted Hail Mary pass, 99 yards. I can still hear Sonny Hirsch in my head, as if it was Gino Torretta dropping back the pass from his own 1 yard line, maybe even inside of that. And he drops back and he finds Horace Copeland on the sidelines, and there's Sonny Hirsch in the booth going, 99 yards. I think his mouth was as widely open as the picture on the King Crimson album that I often reference. We might be able to pop it up here. I don't know if you still have that visual effect, Lubie, but nonetheless, 99 yards. He takes it all the way back. That was a kiss of death and sealed the doom of a hapless New York Jet team on Friday. But the play of the weekend, Lubie, what would you say it was? I'm thinking, I'll give you a little hint here. Yeah, I'm thinking it really needed to be examined in Zapruder film type fashion. And even after that, you could have shared a mixed bag of opinions with a lot of different people. And I don't know that anybody necessarily would have been wrong. The play of the weekend, Ohio State and Michigan. I don't want to keep you guessing here, Libby, because we only have an hour.
Bama bullshit. The Bama ridiculous fucking play that only Auburn would give up that stupid ass play.
Imagine that. I mean,
that was a load of fucking.
I have a Nick Saban rant that I want to get into later on also, because it is amazing. But for all of the assets that he has, where he has better players than you have, I mean, think about this. Their name, image, and likeness. Do you ever hear the term, the transfer from Alabama? You never hear that, do you?
It's rare. There's a few. Like
who's transferred out of there? Nobody, right? Maybe a quarterback? Oh, yeah, Jalen Hurts.
Hurts transfer. The guy Cohen for Miami, who was a really good offensive lineman, was a Bama transfer. Guys will leave that are like so buried on the depth chart, but it's guys that Bama doesn't want. It's not like guys that are disgruntled. Like they stay.
I don't think you can leave. I think the name, image, and likeness must be so airtight, the contracts that they have, if they sign anything. It would be easier to get out of like a rookie contract with the World Wrestling Entertainment Organization. McMahon! This thing is highly unfair. What are you talking about, Vince? I can't work for this. I was making more money when I was wrestling at flea markets. I'm at Madison Square Garden going against Haystack Scalone. I want to get paid, Vince. And he just looks at the contract and goes, well, you're obligated to us for another 11 years at these rates.
Exactly.
Iron fucking clad. Never mind the Iron Bowl. Ironclad, as in the contracts that you have there with Alabama. That was good. But, I mean, the play came in the Michigan-Ohio State game. And I still don't know what the call should be. Do you? On that, did you see this now where Michigan got a touchdown on a passing play and the Ohio State guy wrestles it out of his hands?
Oh, on that the one that Ohio State people still think is an interception. I don't know.
Ohio State is claiming interception, and I mean, do they have a totally illegitimate claim to that? I don't think so.
No, the announcers thought it was an interception.
Well, it was interesting from so many different, I guess angles would be the appropriate word. Because normally, I mean, the whole concept of if you have possession of the ball the instant that you cross the goal line,
yeah, it should be a catch. That's what I'm confused about with that play.
But did he have possession? What was the question?
That's what they're saying. Is that
and if he didn't, it was wrestled out of his hands when he was on the ground.
Yes.
So then would that not, make it an incompletion at that point rather than an interception? Guy's down on the ground. Play essentially is over at that point, and then it was as if the Ohio State guy just picked up the ball off the ground. If you can, I don't know. I mean, the interpretations are wide open on that. They ruled it a touchdown when they made the call. What was it fair to let it stand? Probably so. One of the rare times where you see a call that should be, just blatantly overturned. So obvious that everybody, like a couple of the safeties that we've seen so far this year. And, the safety in that Clemson game with the University of Miami. There's so many calls, where you're looking and you're going, it's impossible to leave this standing. This was not the case with this Michigan-Ohio State thing. But look what a turnaround it was. The final score, the margin of difference, was 6 points in the ball game. It wasn't as if Ohio State was out of it at any time during the contest. And so that was a huge differential. And I still don't know what to tell you, Lubie. You could scream about officiating being the worst it's ever been all you want. I don't know that they made the wrong call there, and I certainly couldn't concede that they made the right one, even after watching that replay 100 times. That was one of the most difficult plays to decipher. What did you think? Or do you remember the play?
It looked like he had the ball. He crossed the line.
It was a little flimsy there, though.
Yeah, I know the guy took it away pretty easily. I don't know. I actually forgot. It's funny you talk about. I forgot about that play. I'm still annoyed by that by the fact that Auburn literally did 5 different things in the last minute and a half. They should have did they won the game. You muff a punt, you get a stop, and then you just catch the fucking ball. Then you have 3rd and 20, and you let them run for 19 and a half yards. Then you have 4th and goal from the 30. Come on,
4th and goal from the 29-yard line. That's incredible.
You can't score from there. I don't give a shit. Let alone a clean catch. It wasn't like he fought a guy and he just did some Rondé Gabson thing. No, he caught it easily, got 2 feet in. I'm like, what the fuck were you doing?
It's true. Nick Saban has better players than you do. Nick Saban has better coaches on his staff than you do. Nick Saban is a better coach than you are. Nick Saban has boosters that have an endless stream of capital that they can feed these guys forever. Nick Saban is the Brian Cashman in terms of being a general manager now in this age where you actually need a GM to decipher how you're going to dole out your money. He has every advantage that you could possibly want. He has the winning resume. He has the attention of the officials and the people that run college football are scared of him. And yet he has an amazing, just a ridiculous shit ton of luck, does he not?
Yes.
This year especially.
It's like the kick 6 went against them, so from that point on.
How lucky can you get? He throws Tua Tagovailoa into a ball game for Jalen Hurts in what appeared to be a move of exasperation and desperation. He benches his starting quarterback and throws a guy that has barely sniffed the field in there. And what does he do? After he gets sacked on a play, comes right back and drills a 40-yard touchdown pass to win the national championship. Sends Jalen Hurts packing to, where did he go? Oklahoma, and then becomes, the rage of college football himself, the most sought-after quarterback in college football, to the point where Stephen Ross tells his newly hired head coach, I finally hired a black man. And he looks at Brian Flores and says, "You know what your mission is, Bri? I want you to lose every game. In fact, I'm going to sweeten the pot here. Here's $100,000 right now, up front, no questions asked, and that's just a taste of what you're going to get if you start losing every game." And this was what Tua what was commanding after his performance there in Alabama, and yet it was a fluke that he even got to that point. What were the odds that you were going to yank your starting quarterback at that moment of a championship game? Zero. I mean, unless you were Bill Belichick and you were looking at Mac Jones. How many times can he bench this kid, by the way? That was insane. But a lot of stuff happening over the weekend. The Dolphins had a win. We had that Friday South Florida Equinox going, where you had not only the Miami Dolphins in action, but the Hurricanes. They beat BC. Everybody was ready to start a parade down Biscayne Boulevard, Lubie. I don't know. Did you get the message on that? Parade starts in a few minutes. No. We're going to win all 4 games today. We had the Panthers and the Heat still to go. Heat end up in a bloodbath, and the New York Knicks blow a big lead. That's been a disturbing and unfortunate tendency, has it not, for the Miami Heat when fully healthy? Now, they were lost to the Nets, but they had Bam Adebayo and Jimmy Butler on the bench, so very prohibitive, the odds of them winning that particular ball game. What did the spread go to? Did you have any idea both of those guys were going to be sitting out? Because if you did,
before the game,
right before the game, they dropped that. Huh?
I knew well before the game that neither was playing. So
okay, all right.
I don't know what the spread was, but
I don't know what the point spread went off. It was probably like a handful of points going in.
8 Nets were getting laying 7 and a hook. I mean, it was a decisive.
That wasn't enough though. I mean, they could have been laying 17 in a hook. I think the way that ball game ended up.
They won by 15.
15. Okay. So they could have been laying 14 in a hook. Yeah. And you would have been okay. But I mean, had you known that, I guess you can excuse that one away. The Heat now, 10-7 on the campaign? And the Panthers lost to Winnipeg. I didn't even know there was still a team in Winnipeg. Do you ever see Winnipeg playing on TV? Never.
Yeah, you'll see the Jets once in a while, and I just assume it's the NFL.
New York Jets, yeah.
Like the Jets.
And actually, that would be a typical Jets score, 3-0. God, they're bad. Wow.
It was so rough.
This guy, Boyle, I mean, the only thing boiling is Robert Saleh's contract.
Yeah.
Probably boiling in oil right now. I don't know. Are they gonna blame him? I don't think so. Yeah. The guy almost deserves a little bit of a pass for what happened this year. And then you had the Jalen Phillips injury, gets hurt without even any contact, just leaving the line, trying to get off the line of scrimmage on a defensive play. Jalen Phillips, who'd been coming on after having an injury-plagued early portion of the season. Yes. And once again, the question pops up. I mean, Aaron Rodgers said that was one of those plays when he tore his Achilles that it didn't look especially devastating. Not the injury so much, but he wasn't really pounded into the ground or anything where he said, "Oh, my God, this guy's got to be badly hurt." So maybe there is something to the idea that they ought to get rid of AstroTurf altogether, artificial turf. Is it still called AstroTurf? It's got to be made of something else by now.
I think they call AstroTurf artificial turf. Yeah.
It's kind of like when all the racetracks decided that for safety reasons, they were going to go to this weird synthetic that was made out of tire rubber that had been crushed into little pieces. And they took all the tracks out, the main tracks, dirt tracks at a lot of different places, fabled racetracks like Santa Anita and other places around the country. And then they realized, you know what? This surface sucks. And they took them all back out, all of the artificial turf surfaces that they had, and they put like regular racetracks back in, dirt tracks. They do have now a more advanced, developed synthetic that a lot of people are in favor of because it saves turf horses from having to scratch. But and some horses just race well on it. But, I mean, isn't it time? I mean, after looking at what happened at MetLife Stadium, I know it's two injuries to really key players. I mean, the Jets season went up in smoke.
Phillips did nothing. Like nothing. Hurt. They're like, you can see it happen. I'm like, see what? I'm like, he just ran. I'm like, that's bad. If he didn't even trip.
Took one step, yeah, one step. Getting that push-off step. That was ugly. All right, we're going to go with the Pigskin Playbook here. We want to get right into it with John Congemi. There he is, the man. Friday all over TV. I don't know. I think he came back after the second game and did some more shows on CBS. It was great. And then were you really you were involved in a pregame show and all of that stuff yesterday, even though there was no game?
No, we had off yesterday, which was great, Defo. Good to be with you guys again. Yeah, we had Friday all day wire to wire, though. We had an hour Dolphin Weekly Live, and then we followed that up with an hour pregame show, and then we followed that up after the game with about an hour and a half post-game fifth quarter show. So, it was a long day in Doral for John Congemi, but it was fun because the Dolphins found a way to win against a really bad offensive football team, at least, and they were able to put themselves in position to easily. I'm not talking about scratching and clawing, easily win the AFC East right now because of what happened at the end of the Buffalo-Philadelphia Eagles game.
That was a classic, wasn't it? That Buffalo-Philadelphia game? That was some ball game, as they say. Boy, what a game last night. That was great. Overtime, and Philadelphia pulls it out. Buffalo has developed a nasty habit of finding ways to lose games.
Yep.
Which, if you're a Buffalo fan, that's bad. If you're a Dolphin fan, of course, that's good. Up 2 and a hook now over the Buffalo Bills with that final meeting at the end of the season, looking like it may not matter as much as we originally thought. We thought that was going to be possibly the showdown, maybe for the AFC East and possibly even a playoff berth. But the Dolphins got themselves on track against the Jets after somewhat I don't know if it was a slow start. It wasn't the best Tua game that we've seen, but still too much firepower for a Jet team that can't generate any offense. Where do you want to begin, John? You want to begin with the Dolphins and the Jets? College football was great over the weekend. Had all these rivalry games. I don't. How do you feel about that? You'd be better equipped to speak about this than Lubie and I would. As you always hear that rhetoric about when it was Florida State versus Miami or Florida State, Florida. Well, these guys have been playing against each other since Pop Warner, and it doesn't matter what the records are. You can throw them out the window. Doesn't mean shit. It's really going to be a bloodbath out there because they love competing against each other. I never really attributed that much to it, although if you watch this weekend's rivalry games in college football, you would have to say maybe there's something to be said for that. I mean, did you feel that way when you were playing in college? It wasn't quite the same because at Pittsburgh, you weren't necessarily running into all of those guys that you mowed down at St. Thomas Aquinas that wanted to seek revenge. But do you find that to be true, that you literally can apply the cliche, you can throw the records out the window when teams like Auburn and Alabama, Florida State and Florida, Washington State was a great ball game. Georgia, even Georgia Tech put up a battle against the number one team in the country. Is there something to be said for that?
Yes, I think there is. Even though I didn't play against those guys from Western Pennsylvania and Philadelphia area or Eastern PA, a lot of my teammates did. And they play in a Big 33 game, which is essentially, you would say, Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach County would play against everybody from Orlando, Gainesville, Palatka, Tallahassee, Panhandle. And you'd have 33 guys on, one team, 33 guys on another team. And you would play every year. And they've done that high school game in the state of Pennsylvania forever. And Ohio does the same thing. And then the Pennsylvania team might play the Ohio team on certain years. So you have guys that not only played against each other for their high schools, and they could have been rivals, could have been just on the schedule that year, but you have them playing against the best before they go to Pitt or Penn State, or before they go to West Virginia or Pitt, or before they go to Syracuse and Penn State. And when those teams or Notre Dame or wherever they're playing. So whenever you have those games, you see those guys again. And man, that guy beat me in high school. I'm not going to let him beat me again. Or that guy I'm supposed to be better than that guy. I was highly ranked, and I got to beat this guy again. So you have those little rivalries inside of the fan base that are just crazy, that are absolutely insane all week and all year about that game. So ratchet that up, I don't know, 100 times, and now you have Michigan, Ohio State, and now you have Florida State.
Like, how impossible is it to? Because people, dumbasses like me, say, "Don't worry about any of that. Focus on the game. Focus on the game." It's all about.
You can't help but hear the outside noise. There's no. You couldn't insulate yourself tight enough not to be human enough to hear it, because if it's not the lady at West Virginia with 3 teeth shooting you the bird as you're going down the street, or
that was a big one for Pitt, West Virginia, or was it Penn State?
Well, it was Penn State. Yeah. So West Virginia was a big game. Don't get me wrong; it was huge. But the rivalry was Pitt-Penn State for Pitt. Anyway, for West Virginia, it might have been the other way. So but it's unbelievably intense And that week is just different than any other week. So now you magnify it and you go around the country. Georgia Tech doesn't have all that much appeal, but to those players it does.
Yeah.
And to that fan base it does. Because Georgia didn't always have the hammer.
No.
So you got to everybody kind of puts themselves in a spot when it becomes rivalry that, oh, Georgia's dominated this series for 50 years. Well, maybe they didn't. Florida State. Everybody says Florida State, Miami. Florida State, Miami is a great game, but it's Florida State. That's the rivalry. Miami just got themselves in it 30 years ago.
I think Schnellenberger convinced us that they were part of it. Yes.
Right.
Well, I was good too because Bobby Bowden and Schnellenberger did a great job promoting that game for the longest period of time, and unfortunately, they kept playing each other every year, regardless. Now they're in the same conference, but it didn't matter. They were going to sustain the series and have it be an annual affair. Whereas we all know the story about the Gators and the University of Miami, where Schnelly literally was on his knees begging them to play him in Orlando. He was going to concede virtually everything. It was, like the negotiations in Gaza, not to compare it to a war, but it was so one-sided. You're thinking, what? You want 3 for 1, you want this, you want that, and sure enough, they blocked anyway under the auspices that the SEC schedule was too demanding for them to play a game that they actually had the potential to lose. So that was ugliness. But all of those games produced fireworks and sparks. The Gators, they were in complete command of this ball game through the first half. It's not uncommon. We've seen Florida State play like this now the last couple of weeks, sort of. But it looked like a thorough domination by the Florida Gators. And I want to kill that kicker. What was his name? Schmenk? Or something like that. The Gator kicker, he misses 2 field goals. Otherwise, I covered a point spread there, getting 6.5. So, and that last touchdown was very painful. All right, let's begin at the beginning then. You wanted to get into this Dolphin game, which took place on Friday. It was a Black Friday affair, 3 o'clock game. I'm at the racetrack, John, watching a game with a bunch of Jet fans, people that had actually invested money in the Jets on the money line, including my good buddy Kyle Moneyline Martinez, who vowed he would never watch another Jet game.
I thought he was done with the
after the Jets-Giants played. And there he was, whooping and hollering, all right, let's go, we got him. And then the Fail Mary happened, and that was it. I mean, if there was ever a signature moment that triggered the kiss of death for a team, that was the one. What did you make of the whole thing? I mean, it leaves the Dolphins in pretty good shape. They're coming up this week. They're going to again be, I would imagine, heavy favorites. The Dolphins, 7-point favorites over the Commanders, who look like they're going to fire Ron Rivera and look a little bit lost right now. And as you said, leaves them in a commanding position in the AFC East, sort of where you would want to be at this point in the season.
Well, first of all, let's start with the Jets. Only the Jets could throw a Hail Mary pick 6, right? Only that franchise.
Never seen
I mean, Tua throws 2 picks in the final minutes of the second quarter and a pick 6.
Yes.
And the Dolphins scored more points in that time frame than the Jets.
It's true.
Okay.
It's amazing, yeah.
So it should be a 10-6 game at halftime, and the Jets did absolutely 0, right? The Dolphins look fragile at best. And all of a sudden you get one play to go, now we've got our spread. We've got the Jets can't score more than 14 points.
Yeah, man.
Or I didn't have them scoring more than 3 points. I had a 31-3 prediction in the game.
I thought they'd get killed. I didn't see how they were going to improve any. I mean, Zach Wilson notwithstanding, how is this guy Boyle going to be any better for them?
The Jets offense didn't cross the 50-yard line until the fourth quarter of the football game.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was as much it was a 10-6 should have been game at halftime, it was really one-sided. And then you look inside the numbers, Boyle completed a lot of passes, but they were all checkdowns because there's no time to do anything.
Yeah.
And the Dolphins kind of went on their merry way. They just kept churning first downs. They kept getting, a couple chunk yardage plays, and defensively they just were, relentless pressure on the pocket. And it was a one-sided second half, but that first half left you wondering, gosh, are the Dolphins really going to let this team hang around? Are they really going to do this to themselves up there? And,
Okay, What was that? Okay, McDaniel's gotten into this pattern now before that, and I get it. Look, you had a minute, 2 timeouts. You trust your offense. You trust Tua. Fine, but don't you always run first play? Don't you always run it to get into the offense? Because they weren't inside the 10, but they weren't at the 40. They're around the 20, 25, and plays like that can happen. So you don't want to be overly aggressive because it wasn't 2 minutes or 2:30. It was less than it was like 50. Maybe it was like a minute 4 because it was 58 seconds.
Yeah.
Pick six.
Yeah.
So minute 4. I'm not saying go Dave wants it. I get it. We're high flying. That's fine. But don't you run it first down just to see, like, the fact that, and I don't even know if they had thrown that out the entire game to that point. Like, Tua had been working the middle pretty well. They hadn't really scored at all because they struggle inside the 40s now, but they had moved the ball a little bit. They had been okay. You're limping to halftime. Like, don't you just say, okay, either we run it and get some yards or go to half? Like, to me, I was like, even before he threw it, I'm like, I don't know about this. Like, I don't know.
Well,
like,
normally you're right, Louie. A lot of teams do that. They run the draw. They run some type of play that, hey, we get 10 here. We get 8. We get 12. Now we're going to go hurry up and we're going to kick it into high gear and see if we can get some points. The Dolphins kind of are built differently, in my opinion, because they haven't shown a propensity to stop themselves in a lot of those situations. They go high octane, foot down on the accelerator, and it puts a lot of pressure on people because they can create so much space.
Yeah.
Now, if you had a team that you had one, if you were the Buffalo Bills, you had one guy that you really are going to go to in that position, and then you've got auxiliary pieces you trust, but you're going to start with, the one guy, right? I think the Dolphins have a lot of guys that create space, and it's not only for themselves, but it's for other receivers. Now, that pick before halftime kicked me back the last couple years going, okay, here's where Tua throws the pick before halftime to put the other team back in position to win the game. And normally the other team would get themselves in position to win the game because they were better or equal to the Dolphins because they had better players. They had equal players. Now the Dolphins have the upper hand. So I think in terms of playing the Jets, I don't think Coach McDaniel ever felt like they were going to lose that game.
Yeah.
And they kind of went, okay, let's be aggressive here. All right, we threw it. We're gonna be okay, and not knowing that it was going to be a pick six on a Hail Mary, but they're still going to probably be okay because the Jets aren't going to score anymore. Yeah. We're going to get more points. We're going to that and a mindset. You don't want to go into a game against Dallas or Baltimore or someone of equal footing with that can make burn you. But I think that they felt like they had a handle on this game. Now, whether that played into the play calling, I don't know, or the decision for Tua to throw that, because I don't even think I've seen him run that play.
No,
so
when
the play was odd because normally you're thinking it's that high crosser or it's the check down or it's a quick screen or it's something to get it going, right? But you make that throw and then all of a sudden you're going, oh man, you're not going to tell me as poorly as the Jets played through almost 30 minutes of football, they're going to take the lead before halftime?
Yeah, it was weird. I mean, crazy. It was sort of similar to the Florida State Gator game where, you're looking at total domination by the Gators in the first half, and they were only leading by 5 points at halftime.
Well, yeah, Defo, you're exactly right. I'm watching that game, and I'm watching it with my son, and he's going, Dad, man, this doesn't look good, And I said, yeah, but you know what? The score is only 12-0.
Yeah.
It feels like a total domination, but the Gators aren't scoring points.
Yeah, they couldn't score.
The Knowles defense is kind of good when they have to be, good enough when they have to be, and they're keeping us into a 1 or 2 plays, and you have the lead, 14-12 or whatever. Yeah.
No, it was crazy. I mean, you see these kind of things coming, especially with bad teams, where they make a valiant and brilliant effort early on and seem to have things under control. The other team's playing like crap, and then you look on the scoreboard, and it's very, very scant margin between the two. and you're thinking, okay, the Dolphins, as they did against the Jets and Florida State, can easily overcome all of the things that happened to them in the first half with any kind of reasonable performance in the second half. All right, so
Defo,
yeah,
I
go
wanted to
ahead.
ask you guys a quick question. So the Florida State-Florida game, after the defensive coordinator for Florida goes bananas on the sidelines,
Yeah.
even if you were a marginal fan, don't you root for Florida State at that point?
I
Yeah.
hate the guy. I really hate him. He talked a lot of shit early in the year when they were beating up on crappy teams, and they had
But
like
he looked like such a – you couldn't script a person to go to Florida other than that guy
yes, he looks like
to coach on that sideline.
Doesn't he look? I mean, I don't know if you saw this, but you would get this if anybody would, being the golf aficionado and player that you are, and having followed a game. Does he look like a young Andy Bean when Andy Bean was a Gator?
Yeah, he
Did you
does.
see a little Andy Bean there? I thought he was going to take out a 9-iron and start swinging it
Yeah,
after a while. All right,
you're
I have
right.
to ask you a question here before we get into some of the other stuff. We have more programs and, of course, the whole college scene to talk about. Pigskin Playbook with the great John Congemi, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. What's the status now? Did they get the roof fixed or whatever was going on there?
No, we're still kind of in a holding pattern.
Okay.
I think that the Chill's still under construction in terms of being open for business.
Yes.
I'm full 100%. I think they're at half capacity right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're getting everything repaired as quickly as possible. And
I would
in
imagine.
the Keys, sometimes that's a little bit.
Hey,
at
Lou,
your
you going to
own
show up today? Yeah, exactly.
maybe, or maybe show up after lunch.
Guys
Yeah,
out fishing.
so I think all's moving according to plan, and they should be up and running shortly.
All right, you notice a little bit of a changed background here, John. I don't know if you caught that. You look, fantastically comfortable in the posh confines of your home. So this was a Mustang thing. She had been waiting for me to move this shit out of the bedroom that is downstairs where I was broadcasting from. And I had it set up. It's sort of the man cave setup. I had all my boxing posters and stuff. So I had to trade out. I had in the background for the last 2 years a Vitaly Klitschko, Danny Williams poster that I liked.
Right.
And the only thing I had that wasn't hanging somewhere was this shot here. I don't know if you can make it out. The
I got
D-Day
it,
at the
yeah.
Bay, which was part of a spectacular sporting trilogy that I was on many years ago as an announcer, where I was at the College Baseball World Series one afternoon. I took a flight out of there after a dreadful long game. Got to New Orleans in time to call some fights at what was the brand new opening of Casino Magic. They had no casinos there. They didn't even have an airport there in Biloxi, Mississippi, if you can imagine at the time. And featured the guy in the poster there is a guy named Ladislao Mijangos, who his distinction was that he was the Mexican heavyweight champion. Well, we know that they don't have any great Mexican heavyweights. So it wasn't like this guy was going to make the Mexican fans forget about the great Salvador Sanchez. And so I hang this behind me, and I'm looking, and it looks kind of barren. I started to hang some other stuff, but none of it was really ready to be hung up at the time. And then I ran out of. So what do you think? Do I put this picture up of a young DeForest standing with Ron Swoboda of the Mets and my buddy Mike, where we were covering some event at an old timers game about 30 some odd years ago? Do I put that up there? Can you make that up?
I think that deserves to go up, Defo.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is going to be on the side. There's not a lot of room as I'm looking at it now. That's one option.
Just put the side that has the good looking Defo on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was about $1.65. I was on some health kick at the time, and then I have some music things. I was going to put this up. This is the great Chris Duarte. I'll put that on the side. What do you think? I mean, I know it needs to be, some redecoration is in order here because I'm looking at this thing. It looks really lame, doesn't it? Looks like Lubie's old background when he had the crib covered up in the background and everybody used to complain to me about it. The guy that was producing the show at the time was like, what are you going to do about Lubie? What are you going to do? He even started to sound like Lubie. So I don't know. What do you recommend? Do I go with some music posters? There's only really room there if I leave that in the center.
There's only room for a couple. Maybe the way you hang it, you're going to be able to see half of something. So half of Defo is better than no Defo. So if you
I don't know if people want to see it. Like,
there,
is it good to put I mean, you could get away with it, a picture of you, when you were in high school or something. But with me, it's a dead giveaway that Father Time is winning this battle. No?
I don't know. Music posters are good too, Defo.
Yeah, I like that. I got a couple of them. I'm going to pay tribute to our good buddy Albert Castiglia, who gave us some customized music. Which really, I mean, I don't know that our broadcast and our transmission of his music really does it justice, but
Right.
nonetheless, I think I ought to put his picture up there. I'll fix it up. Right now, what would you think? It's a little lame, you would have to say, no?
I don't think anything. Defo, D-Day at the Bay. I mean, you're bringing back good memories for yourself.
1994, yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine that this casino was just like a plastic tent on a barge, and it was the only thing in the city. The hotel that I was in, which if you could call it a hotel, was about, I would say, a good 20 minutes away from Casino Magic. It was the only place that you could stay. And there were still bullet holes from where the window had been shot out in my room. So not exactly. I mean, you've taken a few of those road trips. No, didn't you go to some podunk places when you were on the road for ESPN?
When you talk about Biloxi, Mississippi, Pitt's going to play Georgia in the Sugar Bowl, and Jackie Sherrill's from Biloxi, so the team had to go to Biloxi first, and everybody got money, cash, to spend. You had like $500, $600 in your pocket.
Wow!
And three players who go to this breakfast place decide to eat and then just walk out and not pay. So they're walking down the street.
Little James Winston move. Yeah.
Of Biloxi, Mississippi, and there's the description of three gentlemen, all ranging 6'5" to 6'6", weighing 300 pounds, walking down the street. So they're
non-Caucasian gentlemen.
Oh, we forgot. Here's the cash. But that was my memory of Biloxi.
I mean, it's expanded, exponentially since. They have like 7 casinos there, and I guess they do have a way to fly in and out without having to go to New Orleans and then taking a 2.5-hour car ride. But and not exactly. I mean, it's not like we're commemorating the thrill in Manila here by hanging this poster in the background. It's kind of a busy poster because a couple of friends of mine were promoting the fight. I think they wanted to show that they had all of these great bouts, so they listed them all on the poster, which you rarely see. So I may have to make a move there and change that up. All right, so the chill under repair. We'll come back in just a moment here with John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook, and so many different things happened over the weekend, going all the way back to Thursday's games in the National Football League, and of course, a huge day of college football. I was gargling with Visine, John. I don't know about you, but I watched a lot of this stuff, including that Ohio State-Michigan game, which we'll get your thoughts on and see how you interpreted what I'm calling the play of the weekend, which that's a hard thing to have one pan out. But I think that play that they ruled Michigan had a touchdown on, I don't know what you thought about that, but we'll come back and talk about that and some of the other things that happened on the college grid and the pros. John Congemi's Pigskin Playbook right here on the Defo Show with Jeff DeForest and Mike Lubie Lubitz returns in a moment. On that.
The time.
You got 600 in your pocket? They used to give us $3 when I was on the Syracuse baseball team. It was enough to get like 4 Carol's hamburgers and
It was a bowl game. It was a bowl game.
Wow, 6 sticks. That's good. It's 8:40.
Folks, Tony Segreto here. Let me ask you a question. What do you look for when you go out to eat? Good food, obviously. Friendly atmosphere, not too loud, but good energy, reasonable prices, and a place where you feel comfortable. All those ingredients, no pun meant there, are hard to find unless you're talking about the Texas Roadhouse. You see, they encompass all of those attributes. Really, really good food, amazing atmosphere, good for a family, good for a date, or just a night out for yourself, and prices that will make you extremely happy. Their ribs unmatched. Steaks hand-cut every day. Everything, and I mean everything, is made on site, including their incredible bread. It's the one day, folks, that you can forget about low-carb diets. Trust me when I tell you, Texas Roadhouse, your restaurant, your destination when you say, where should we go and eat tonight?
From the newly renovated sports bar to the beautiful bayside views captured at the Tiki Bar, Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill has it all. Located at mile marker 104, the Big Chill also offers waterfront dining while experiencing breathtaking sunset views of the Florida Keys. It's simply the hottest spot in the Keys to cool off. That's Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill at mile marker 104 in Key Largo. For more information, call today at 305-453-9066.
Great John Grisham with us here on 940. State Line Dolphins with John Congemi, and that's brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill. in the Keys, and we're looking very much forward to doing some broadcasts there. I think we're going to head down there like once a month during the football season. I have to ask you this, and feel free to, not necessarily spill the beans from a personal standpoint to your good friend Dan Marino. Does he experience, or did he ever experience nightmares about handing the ball off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar that one year when Jimmy insisted on running the ball on every play? And it was always, the announcer, I think it was Ron St. John, was a stadium announcer back then, and you could hear him say, "Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 2nd and 9. Hand off to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, gain of 1, 3rd and 8. Can he ever talk about that?
No, he's never really talked about that, Defo. But you're right. I think they did have that on loop at whatever the stadium was called at that time.
It was 1 yard every time. And it was a generous 1 yard they were giving him statistically.
Enjoy your trip to work with lots of laughs thanks to Defo and Lubie. Now on the Defo Show.
Yeah, maybe you can give him a yard on that one. I still remember that. Wow, that was such ugliness.
That was.
In that offense. It was just absolutely brutal. All right, let's go into the college grid. John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook here. So Georgia Tech, Georgia survives. I don't know, was there a backdoor touchdown there by Georgia Tech late in the game? Because
yes,
it seemed like Georgia had assumed command, and then they only win the game, I believe, by an 8-point margin. They had been challenged early on. Looking pretty good, though, and definitely worthy of the number 1 ranking in the country. Nobody's beaten them. 29-game winning streak. A lot of things happening for Georgia that make you think that Kirby is exactly what his last name describes. Very smart about the way he's going about his business. Michigan, Ohio State. That was a great game. I mean, for a rivalry game, there were many. I mean, as we said, the genuine bloodbaths that took place and challenging games for teams. The underdogs really fought their eyeballs out against teams that were supposed to be superior. This was one where you had at the very top 2 supposedly evenly matched teams. Lubie and I were completely duped once again, as we all thought, or at least we both thought, that Ohio State was playing just better football right now than Michigan was, and that regardless of the Harbaugh saga, they just seemed to have a team that was in a better position to win the game, even on the road at the Big House. They did have chances to win the game, didn't manage to do it. Ryan Day, immediately, the conversations begin again. Well, geez, I got to get rid of this guy. And he looked like, I don't know, did you see him leaving the field and going into the locker room? They had a shot of him. I think Sean Penn had more enthusiasm when he was walking to the chair in Dead Man Walking than Ryan Day did. What did you make of it? I think Michigan surprised me. I don't know about a lot of people, but they surprised, me for sure with their ability to stave off Ohio State by putting some points on the board as well as playing some good defense.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game. 2 equally matched teams. I thought Ohio State might have more skill on their offense in terms of skilled players or the best of the skilled players. But Michigan, man, they dominated up front when they needed to, and they were able to create nice running lanes when they had to have first downs. And J.J. McCarthy's a quarterback that has a little bit more experience, maybe a little bit more moxie to his game. And I was with you guys. I didn't know how to take Michigan because it seemed like they sometimes played down to their opponent and kind of looked like slug, like it was everything was a slugfest when they were trying to win games against, say, a Minnesota or a middle of the road Big Ten team. But boy, now that they've gotten over the hurdle of their rival, they put themselves in position to play an Iowa team that might not, they may go negative points in the Big Ten championship. I don't know if they're going to be able to score anything or generate anything on offense against Michigan. That's the trap you have to look out for early in a game, but I don't think Iowa's going to threaten them at all. And Ohio State's going to possibly be that team on the outside looking in. As good as they are, depending on how the championship games go with the ACC and the Pac-12, it's going to be interesting to see who's the 4 teams that are left standing now that you feel like, yeah, Alabama's going to give Georgia a run, but Georgia should be the better team and should win the game. There's no doubt that Michigan's going to win the game against Iowa and be in the last team standing for the college football playoff. It's the other two spots that are going to be very interesting.
What do you do with Ryan? Look, it's interesting. It's like the first year that the playoffs are not set. Like all these games, depending on what happens, is what will be the playoffs. So it's really cool. It feels like we get usually the championship Saturday is a day of football, but there's like 2 games. The rest of it's bullshit. Like there's still like a ton of games that have a lot to be answered. Which
right, well, Texas. I mean, just take a look at that. Right,
that's a big thing. There's just a lot there. But to me, I'm still like, I don't know what to do with Ryan Day because you're Ohio State, you recruit top 3 literally every year. You're either in the playoffs or almost in the playoffs. If you lose 1 game, that's like your max. But they haven't won with him, and they've now lost 3 in a row to Michigan. And it feels like Michigan, who isn't even recruiting at the same level, is just better. And they didn't even have their head coach in the game, and they just were able to outlast them. Look, being where FSU was to where FSU is now, we're down here with Miami, who's just trying to get into the conversation. You want to get there, but there is sort of okay, we plateaued. What do we do now? To me, it's hard to fire a guy when you don't know who you're going to get that's better. But Ryan Day, it feels like he sort of hit his zenith. Like, what do you do with Ryan Day, the whole Ohio State situation, where it does feel like Michigan has sort of passed them?
I don't know wasn't there a time where Michigan couldn't beat Ohio State?
Yeah.
Years in a row they lost.
And everybody wanted Harbaugh to get out of there, and he can't win the big game. So now I think you have to have patience if you're Ohio State. I mean, how bad is it that you're the 5th team in the country? I mean, yeah, you want to win it all. You want to win the national title. You want to win the Big Ten championship. You want to play for it at least. I think this is all comes in a cycle. And for the fan bases to want to fire a guy that has probably, close to 890 win percent, whatever, whatever the win percentage is pretty damn good.
Yes.
And people all over the country would like to be Ohio State in terms of how many games they win on a year on average. I think you stand pat and you stand patient with it. You're recruiting the right players. You're dominating the Big Ten in terms of, if you take over the last 10 years, you have a chance to play. I mean, you should have beaten Georgia last year. They had the game won. So you're doing all the right things. Hey, it didn't work out in the Michigan game. I don't understand why fan bases and people panic. You've got a good coach, and you've got a good recruiting pipeline, and you've got great assistants. I would stay status quo if I'm Ohio State. Yeah, we lost the game. So what? Played well. We were right there. We were a play or 2 away. Yeah. I don't know why people go bananas over, losing a game. Not everybody wins every year.
Can't.
It's just impossible.
Yeah. And look, you can have long-term struggles, as we've witnessed. Even if you're in the most fertile of recruiting bases, like USC, which we've often referenced.
Right.
Although they've made inroads, maybe towards getting it back, but they make this big hire with Lincoln Riley, and they play like crap this year.
Well, Defo, look at Colorado. Has anybody mentioned Colorado in the last month and a half, 2 months?
Deion, yeah, that was it.
No one's even talking. Everybody, we got to go get Deion to be our coach. He recruits, he fires guys. We got to get that guy. Well, that guy's lost like 7 in a row or whatever it is.
And he didn't get the Texas A&M job. I guess they went to Mike Elko, who was.
I think that guy's a great coach.
Yeah, he looked good this year.
And he was there. He was the defensive coordinator at Texas A&M.
I think he was there 5 years. Yeah,
right. And after that, it seemed like every year that defense went downhill. So I think that's a great hire.
Yeah, it was good too. I'm glad I was getting 14 with Texas A&M in their matchup over the weekend. That certainly was a more comforting end result for me than
I knew you were
otherwise would have been
something like that.
Well, I saw that hire, and there was speculation with Deion about any of the high-profile jobs that were going to be opened, including Texas A&M. And I'm looking, going, wait a minute, the guy's like 1-6 in the conference or whatever.
He lost 8 of 9.
Yeah. So it's not like he's some miracle worker. Maybe that is a giant improvement. They'll go from 1 win to 4 wins. But still, it isn't like you're looking at their results and saying, well, here's the next Vince Lombardi.
The circus was coming to town in week 0 and 1 and 2.
Yeah,
right? Everybody.
Yeah.
Who's on the sideline this week? I bet no one on ESPN showed anybody on the sideline this week, did
Scott
they?
fucking Pelly was on the sidelines from 60 Minutes. I mean,
stupid as
Pelly, who's usually in
Yeah.
Ukraine with these human interest stories that are, so moving. I was in tears last night again with this guy. He's like the news version of Roy Firestone. He's always going to make you cry with these stories, and he couldn't have attracted more attention, but not enough, I guess, to get one of these high-profile jobs based on what he's done so far this year. All right, so Michigan's there, and they have kind of an easy road, 22-point favorites against Iowa in the championship game. But these other championship games loom large. You have the rematch of Washington and Oregon. Oregon playing great football since a 3-point loss. Washington a little bit suspect. They were challenged again by Washington State in their rivalry game this week. That was a fantastic game going back and forth, and you thought the underdogs might survive. And then you have all these is it possible Nick gets back into it?
No.
No.
I don't.
He's got to face Georgia in the SEC title game if he beats them.
I guess I have lots of losses.
I don't think so.
Only lost to Texas?
Yeah. I just think Oregon and Washington winner is in. Florida State, if they run the table, I think they're in. Texas might be the one. I don't know. It's going to be one conference champ's going to be left out, right? Is that the way it's looking like?
What it feels like.
Has to be, sure. Yeah.
So there's no way for if Alabama upset Georgia, somebody else would have to lose. That would be an upset. Oklahoma State would have to beat Texas.
Because that's the thing, right? Like Texas did beat them. It was early in the year, but they beat them head to head.
Yeah.
At their house, and they won by double digits. Like,
right.
I know that in the past they screwed Miami when FSU, but what Ken likes to point out, and it is true, FSU at least was at Miami, and it was a last-second field goal. This wasn't that. Texas controlled that entire game.
Yeah, they did.
At Alabama, and they ended up still winning by 10. And that's the thing is these people keep saying head-to-head has to win out. So that's a lot of people.
It'll be interesting because now you're going to see on that selection committee who's going to, who favors what conference. What ADs are going to try to butter the bread of somebody else, right? Like you're going to see how it all shakes out, and it'll be interesting. That's why I'm kind of hoping for the easy way out. I don't want to see it come down to say in Oregon beats Washington and all of a sudden they're left out. Somebody deserving is going to be left out. That's the way it looks like right now. And you're kind of hoping as a maybe a purist or a fan that you see some upsets, so everybody kind of slots in where you feel like you deserve to be.
All right, we need you to weigh in on the play, which I thought was the play of the weekend, although, Lubie's talking about that pass by Alabama. And
that was
fourth and forever. I mean, the 4th and 29. He completes a touchdown pass to win the game. when that was another game where it looked all along like Auburn was in control. And Alabama kept hanging around, but you didn't expect them to win by way of miracle, which that certainly was, or it was darn close to it. But the Michigan-Ohio State game was decided by 6 points, and so you could say that this was the deciding factor, where Michigan picks up 7 points on what many people thought was an Ohio State interception. Are we in need of Terry Porter here to come running across the field and do a replay? What did you think about that? Because I watched the play. I saw it live. I saw the zillion replays. You listen to the speculation. They never want to make a call on TV, but most of the commentators seem to be. Although, should it be illegal for Gus Johnson to call any marquee games anymore? I don't know if you're a Gus fan, but
he was losing.
He's picked up some strange habits as the play-by-play guy.
Run, touchdown, Michigan. Oh
my God.
Freaks out every play.
It was a nightmare because, I'm a huge boxing fan, as evidenced by the fact that I don't know of anyone else that has, even in his own household, I don't think there's a poster of Vladislav Miangos hanging. But he used to ruin boxing for me because his whole call went to something along the lines of Smith, Jones, Smith, Jones. You're like, well, what the fuck is going on in here? Say something. I mean, does anybody land a punch? Is that a low blow? What is that? No description whatsoever, and he's kind of resorted to doing that now, just arbitrary, infrequent
I think it's
screams.
hilarious because you know it's coming.
Yeah.
And the funnier thing to watch for, Defo, is Gus's his default is when he has nothing to say.
Yeah.
He'll say, and that was a great throw by Congemi from Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. He's 6'1", 175 pounds.
He was
He's just reading it
At a
from
3.9 grade point
He's
average.
just reading what he's got on his 2D.
You picked up on something there.
So watch for that one next week.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
That's great.
No, he used to, and this is common. I mean, there aren't that many things sometimes to say when you're doing boxing, but he began every round by announcing what round was coming up, which is probably good, although you could see it on a graphic there if you're watching TV, and then always scheduled for 12. This is round 1, scheduled for 12. And by the time you got to the 11th round, it's like, if you say that again, I'm just going to throw a brick at the TV. And we know it's scheduled for 12. This is the 12th fucking round, Gus, all right? Enough of it. But what did you think about the play? I mean, honestly, Zapruder film-esque. I don't know that I could have made a call there. I've leaned both ways. I thought, okay, the guy had the ball when he fell, to the ground, then was tackled in the end zone. Usually good enough, but did he have complete control of the ball? And if he didn't, and he's on the ground and the guy wrestles it away on what otherwise would have been an incomplete pass, is that still an interception? I know, and I think they didn't have much choice eventually, to let the call stand. But
yeah.
What did you think?
The fallback's normally what's called on the field, right?
Yeah.
That the replay officials usually fall back to that unless it's clear and obvious. Undisputed, video evidence, I guess you'd have to say.
Yeah.
But I think they have to do something to tweak the rules about a runner breaking the plane with control and then a receiver who possesses the ball that breaks the plane with control. Okay? Because they're two different things. If you're a runner, if you're a quarterback and you got the tush push, or you're a regular running back, and all you have to do is break the front of the plane of the goal line for it to be a touchdown. But if you're a receiver and you're carrying the football into the end zone, you have to control through the catch or through the ground, right? Whether you're running or catching it in the end zone. So that receiver has control as he breaks the plane of the end zone. And I think that should be the definitive rule, but it's not. It's almost like through the ground. You have to have possession when you're a receiver and you cross the goal line. If you cross the goal line, that's one thing. But if you haven't touched the ground, the ball can be jostled.
Sure. He was upright when he went in there. I don't know that he had 100%
control of it.
Yeah.
So I thought the ball was getting wrestled away from him
after the fact. Could be.
That's what I thought.
So I don't know. I just think that there's two different ways to look at it in terms of breaking the plane as a runner and breaking the plane as a pass receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a huge play.
I know.
As I looked at it time and again and thinking, well, what should have been called there? The ruling on the field, as you said, was that he had a touchdown. I thought when I saw it originally that he had it.
Yeah.
And then, I see the guy's hand go in there almost simultaneous to the point where he's crossing the goal line. And I don't know that he had 100% of a grasp on the ball. He does get tackled and goes down and still has the ball at that point, it seemed like. But it was starting to break loose.
Right.
And then the other guy ends up without the ball hitting the ground with the ball.
I know.
And you're thinking, my God, where is Terry Porter when you need him if you're Ohio State?
I thought the call was going to be reversed because I didn't think that the receiver possessed the football through the catch. Right. Through the ground. And I thought they were going to reverse it on that term. But I didn't hear the explanation, and I don't know how they explained it on TV.
I think they just brushed over it. Said,
They just did-
rolling on the field stands. We're out of here.
And that was it. They said, look, it looks like it may be an interception. And then,
Yeah.
when, of course, they're like, not an interception. The call stands are like, well, there wasn't enough to overturn it. So
Yeah.
they just stood.
It was a bizarre one, yeah. But maybe, as Lubie pointed out, not even necessarily the biggest play of the weekend, which I thought that one.
Yeah,
really
the
stood out.
Alabama one was
That one was fucking
insane because you're only rushing 2 players.
Okay, let me ask you. I understand you don't want to go all out because you can get it someone in the middle of the field. But why are you rushing? Like Milrow, you literally just let him do Mississippi's. You let him just stand there. Someone's eventually going to get open if he can stand there for 40 minutes. Like, why rush 2 there? Like, I didn't understand that at all.
Well, take it to the NFL now. The only reason the Dolphins were able to get the pick 6 on the Hail Mary is because Boyle didn't feel comfortable getting in to be able to throw it high enough and long enough into the back of the end zone or the middle of the end zone. He rushes the throw, which doesn't get a lot of height on the football and doesn't get it far enough to get it so his receivers have a play on the ball. Meanwhile, one of the Dolphin players mugs a Jets wide receiver, and it's never called interference on a Hail Mary. No one ever calls interference.
That's true.
But there's interference every Hail Mary.
Sure.
So I don't know how that rule is going to be changed or not. But anyway, you're right. You rush 2 players, and Milrow sees the middle of the field. Everybody's doubled. I think Gary Danielson was doing the game, and he was right. Everybody's doubled from hash to hash or not inside the numbers, except for the outside 2 receivers. So if you're going to throw the football anywhere and you have all that time, you might as well put it up to whoever you think is going to win a jump ball, and it couldn't have been placed any better. But the issue was that he had all day to kind of survey and go, I'm not throwing it there. I'm not throwing it there. Maybe, you know what, I'm going to throw it outside. And it was kind of easier for him to decipher what he wanted to do because he had so much time.
Nothing more calamitous than watching a bunch of 400-pound linemen trying to chase down a defensive back with speed.
Oh, my goodness. You knew that was going to the house, right?
That was great. I wasn't sure at any time, really. Looking and going, wait a minute, who's going to make the tackle here? And then he had the feigned, Marino attempt at the tackle, the quarterback. Although Danny used to just kind of jog in behind
Danny
him.
would have been already he would have been in the locker room. He'd have ran right in the tunnel.
I used to love watching Danny, feign like he was going to tackle a guy after a pick 6. It was always great. John, you never had to worry about that because you were always throwing a ball on the money, and always appreciate your time here on the show. John Congemi, the Pigskin Playbook for this week, brought to you by Jimmy Johnson's Big Chill, mile marker 104, the Overseas Highway in Key Largo. Dynamite weekend all the way around, John. Glad you had a chance to enjoy it like we did. And as always, a pleasure, my friend. Thanks so much for being with us on the program today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Talk to you soon.
John Congemi, ladies and gentlemen, on the Pigskin Playbook. All right, nobody knows what to make of that play, Lubie, or its significance, I guess. I think that was the turning point in the entire ballgame, maybe even in the college football season, was it not?
Oh, no, it's a huge play. I mean, if it goes the other way, Michigan now loses a touchdown, but Ohio State makes the kind of play that turns tides. I mean, that was a huge play. It looked like a touchdown to me, so I just said screw it. And Michigan
ball's kind of on the guy. It's not quite on his hip out yet when he crosses the goal line, but it's one of those things where it's almost slipping out of there, like as Rick Weaver would say, a wet watermelon seed. It's starting to come loose, and because of the defensive backs, what do you want to go, Mike Mayock on this hand pressure? Yeah, he was putting on the ball. In other words, he's got his hand in the guy's crotch, and the ball's coming out. So it was an interesting play, and it shows you what the narrowest of margins can mean, because you're talking about people still striking up that conversation again about Ryan Day needs to go, in spite of I think his record is like above 90%. Is it?
Oh, no, it's insane. I don't think they've lost more than one game in any. I mean, I guess maybe that 1 year.
It's been amazing, yeah. And if you could contend every year, eventually you pop one, don't you?
I just, as watching my team fall into disrepair and have 4 losing years in a row, and I want to win the playoffs, but I'm trying to remind myself of where we were, and like the fact that to get to this place is not easy. You get spoiled when you have these programs that win every year, and if you're an Ohio State fan, believe me, it's not an automatic. It's just
sure. How bad can you feel?
is they've been very lucky. Tressel won, and then Urban won, and now Ryan Day won. And yeah, so you assume no matter who's there, you're going to win. That's not exactly true. It doesn't always work out. Like Bama did find a few people that did not win when they were their coaches.
Sure.
USC, same thing. Every great program.
USC still hasn't found that guy, right?
Finds guy. Yeah, a great coach in Lincoln Riley isn't even fucking winning there.
Sure.
So it's like, I watch what you wish for. Like, you know, like it's not that simple. Like,
no, that was great though. The whole rivalry game thing was really on display, full display over the weekend. Several games that were just absolute. Smash up. It was like the old demolition derby, West Islip Speedway, last man standing. All right, we have to run. We'll have a no filter thing for you. The morning briefing, Caffeine TV, and then 10 o'clock today, Tony Bruno Sports Network. We'll go 10 to 12 with what we think is going to be a no glitch radio show. And plenty of things to explore, and we'll be able to get into even more detail on the Tony Bruno Sports Network, the Defo and Lubie show, which we haven't quite mastered that whole thing. You still have clips with the Defo show on them, and
I know I need to redo the.
I'm having trouble putting you into the title of the show, which it shouldn't be the case, but should be a lot of fun on there from 10 to 12 today. Now that we think that we have things figured out, how about this? I moved all of this shit upstairs, and it worked.
It did.
Is this camera out of focus at all?
No, it's great. No,
Yeah,
it looks great. I'm so fucking impressed.
Fuck. What do you think? Let me do this again here. I mean, this is almost frightening. Is this going to be upside down? No.
It's fine.
I'd gone on a health campaign right before we did this. This was part of a pilot. My buddy Mike, who's on the other side of Swoboda in the Mets jersey, and I were wearing, we were doing a pilot for a show, and it ended up getting some traction. We thought we were going to become millionaires off this thing. And I've told the story many times. We're at this fancy ad agency in New York, Dancer, Fitzgerald, and Sample. Me and my buddy are wearing like Hawaiian shirts. We look like we're extras in Magnum PI on one side of the table. And on the other side of the table is a battery of attorneys, all from, very well-to-do schools. And they hand us a contract, and we look at it, and we're thrilled. It's like $1 million for 3 years, Lubie. Can you imagine? This is 40 years ago. And sure enough, we read the details of the contract on the way home on the Long Island Railroad. We were staying at our friend's house on Long Island, the great Ira the Met fan, and Rosalie. And we're reading the contract, and I'm looking at it going, if we sign this, we'll be in prison by the end of the month. It was right there, Lubie. It was right there. Yeah, all right, we got to run. We'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Great to get through a Peel Yourself Off the Mat Monday with all you guys on board here. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time as we leave you know that.
The time.
Arnie says you're in. Final four. Is that a jinx? It's 9:09.
Let's go to eat a damn snack.
Look what they done.